Welcome to the OFX podcast. I'm Dave Claxton, and along with me, as always, is our bandlist beauty, Bethany McChesney. Sorry, little dig too soon.
It's fine.
All right, obviously, we're going to talk a whole shit ton about Ocrwc. We're going to probably talk a little bit of High Rocks and stuff like that, and a little bit about our upcoming deck this weekend. Before we do, a couple of things I want to get out of the way. One, I should say out of the way. This episode, as always, is brought to you by Duonamic. And I want to thank them because in my greedy little mitts, I have the Alivia. Is that how you say it?
It looks like it, yeah.
All right. Door frame pull-up system that they are giving to the winners of this upcoming weekend's Deca Strong at Farm Girl Fit. So very excited. Thank you very much, Duonamic. That is awesome. One for the men, one for the women. And also we have a new sponsor. And I'm really excited about designateddrinks.ca. So they are a Canadian company and they're out of London, Ontario. And what they do, and this really hit home with us, is they supply non-alcoholic beer. So you order online, it's delivered to your home, all sorts. And this is the thing, is it's not just one beer. I am having tonight a Upside Down Golden from Athletic Brew. They don't just give you, there we go. So they don't just give you a selection of one type of beer. It's a huge selection of beer, and they try to stay with like Canadian craft beers, but they do expand a little bit. So really excited about them. Going to be test piloting a lot of different beers on the podcast. Some I'm sure I will love, and some I will probably hate, but I'm going to try them all. And yeah, I just think it's a great company. I'm just really excited to be doing stuff with them, and as always, like I said, still with Duonamic, who have been awesome and still makes a great product. I'm hoping that we see Duonamic out at some Spartan events this year. That is kind of a hope, and it happened. So fingers crossed. And who knows? Maybe Designated Drinks will be out there too. So thank you very much to both of them for sponsoring the show. And if you want to help us and help the show, help them, make some purchases, dive in. And we don't take Patreon. We don't do anything like that. We do have a training program. You can sign up for that. But this is a great way to support us as a show rather than just filtering money to us for nothing. Support our sponsors and even jump on training, because we do have a couple of spots. We'll see. We don't get a ton of spots, but maybe a few. So Ocrwc, do you remember it? Like, it was a while ago, right?
Oh, my body remembers it.
Do you want to start with like our experience or some of the elephants in the room kind of thing?
Why don't we do like really briefly our experience? Because I think people care more about the elephants in the room, but
all right. So you can take the lead. Let's hear your deal.
Oh yeah. Yeah, okay. So I did the 15K Pro. I love this race.
Wait. Why did you not do the 3K?
Because I'm non-committal and it was out when I went to register. So these events actually sell out, which is fine, and that's fantastic. But yeah, the 3K, because it's such a short race, fast, and with these type of obstacles, they limit the numbers. So yes, the 3K sold out by the time I went to register. So that's the only reason I did not race the 3K. So I raced the 15.
How'd it go? Like, I mean, wow, what happened?
Yeah, so I was feeling absolutely fantastic and no obstacle failures. It's always like, I'm not super obstacle strong. Running is kind of my thing. So it's always the event that really challenges me and makes me nervous as far as being a mandatory obstacle completion race. I have done this race as far as being OCR Worlds and NORAMs, and I finished in 2019 with my band, and then the 2 years before I did not, and then I haven't raced it since 2019 because of COVID. So this year, although I've been training really hard, it was kind of my year to kind of see how things were going. So I was feeling absolutely fantastic. No obstacle failures, everything getting it on the first try, feeling very smooth, awesome with my running. A year ago to this day, I was in a walking boot, so in a walking cast. So the mountain stuff always made me nervous too, but felt amazing. some obstacles that have tripped me up in the past. I was kind of flying through them. So I was through about 40 obstacles of 45, 14 and a half K of 15K. And then I came to an obstacle called drop zone. And again, I was feeling no problems, no forearm pump, nothing. And I kind of took a risk on my first try and try to do a lache, just again, probably a little bit overconfident of a move, but just to kind of move through it quickly. And it didn't work. And then I went back on the obstacle and realized the move that I tried to do instantly blew up my grip. And then so I was there, I did 11 attempts on that obstacle, and I was not getting any further along. And then on my last attempt, I completely tore my hand, like really bad. And just with the amount of blood that was instantly pouring off my fingertips, I decided to let them cut my band appropriately. And then I finished the race, not touching another obstacle because that's just kind of gross with the amount of blood. And yeah, so that was kind of where it ended for me. I was kind of disappointed. No, I was very disappointed. I know that my strength was there to be able to do that obstacle. It was just kind of where it fell, probably being overconfident to do a move that my body was not ready for, and it kind of blew things up a little bit for me. So yeah, I have a little bit of regrets with doing that on that obstacle, but I also feel very I'm encouraged with how I felt leading up to that point. I felt very good on obstacles up to that point. So I kind of just have to think about that, and with just kind of how far I've come with some of those obstacles that I've done in the past and struggled with a little bit. So yeah, I mean, it's such a cool race with just the uniqueness of the obstacles, and 45 obstacles in a 15K. And almost all of them are super unique to any other race that you do in the season. So it's just, I don't know, it's such a cool experience in that way. So that's how it ended for me. I am a non-completion category pro, but just those kind of races fuel you when it comes to training for your next season. So that's how it went for me.
I look at it honestly, and a lot of people could get down and look at that as a defeat. And actually, I don't, from your perspective, and I don't think you should either, because a couple of things. And I mean, I obviously know you very well, and I know that your training is not tailor-made for this. This kind of hills, this kind of elevation, especially the downhills, like uphills, you can simulate on a treadmill, you can jump up and down on stairs, you can do whatever. Downhills are freaking hard to do anything to simulate with. It's really difficult. And you profess yourself as not really an obstacle person either, more strength on your running. But these are, like, in North America, this is generally speaking the hardest obstacle course, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you were cruising, you were doing great. Well, like, what place were you in come time at the drop zone, which is a cool obstacle, by the way. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I was 13th at that point.
So 13th in that field is freaking amazing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. And from there on out, it was flat section there. It was you could have turned on the jets and stuff. So I look at
Yeah.
this as actually a big, I mean, I shouldn't say a big win, but there's a lot of positives to take away, like a huge amount of positives. And definitely going forth, like number one being your Achilles holding up so well, your
Yeah.
injury being healed with all that climbing, with all that descent. If it was going to act up, that was the time.
Yeah.
And the fact even that you, like you say, you made a move that maybe you shouldn't have, and maybe that was a little ill-advised, but at the same time, the fact you had the confidence to do it means that your training, you were feeling strong, your cardio was on point,
Mm-hmm.
even your grip strength training was pretty much on point. You just made a little tactical error. So I think it's huge takeaways of good stuff. And normally, I'm a downer and want to tease you, but I think you did great. Like, I think it went really well. Shit happens, but all in all, there's just a hell of a ton of positives. I would be very pleased with it. And so good for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's true. I was feeling very confident in that obstacle, which is why I even attempted that all, which I keep thinking, I don't know why I decided that it was a good idea for me to do that, but I was just feeling so good. So you just kind of do some things that are fun because you're like, I feel no fatigue. I'm just going to go for it. And then,
Was it a little peer pressure though?
I didn't feel peer pressure, but like you come into the festival and like you have these people kind of cheering you on, and you're like, I'm gonna give these people a bit of a show. Like I'm gonna try to illustrate. And then so yeah, there's a bit of excitement around it because people are watching, but
Well, and I meant like the girls that generally you had been running with too.
oh, yes, that's true. So I was running with two girls, Hannah Carta and Amy Panchik, who are phenomenal obstacle girls. And we were kind of back and forth. Like I would catch up to them on runs and then we'd hit obstacle sections and they would be just like they would lachey through everything. And Hannah and Amy obviously know each other quite well. So they'd be like, oh, did you lachey that last one? And they'd be like, yeah, I lacheyed. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not lacheying anything. So they were kind of like, and then I'd run with them a little bit and they were chatting about their technique and stuff. So I was like, okay, like I'm running with these girls and they're lacheying things. So I'm like, I'm going to lachey this obstacle, which is so weird because I don't do that at all. Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of, I was getting excited. And again, I was having so much fun on these obstacles. And that's the total truth. And so I'm like, oh, and like the videos of me trying this obstacle the first time, I'm like, I'm going to lachey. This is so fun. And then again, it just blew up my grip. So yeah, I maybe peer pressure and just like the girls that I was with who were complete obstacle masters. And my running kept me with them because they would blow past me in obstacles. I'd catch backs of them on running. And so, yeah, maybe in that way it was the peer pressure, but yeah, and just having fun with the obstacles because there's such cool obstacles in this race.
Yeah, and not only are Amy and Hannah like great obstacle people, but they're just really good people. They're great to be around and talk to. So
Oh
two,
my gosh, they're so amazing.
you
Yeah.
couldn't have picked two better people to run with. So that was good. So I mean, all in all, 14 and a half K of awesome. Don't let half a K of not so awesome ruin it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So my perspective obviously was very different from yours going in. And I mean, everyone who's followed for like the last year, well, really much longer than that, has known that this was my jump into pro wave, my how the hell did I get qualified type thing. Who knows, right? How does a brick with feet end up in the pro wave? But it, I did, and I'm going to put out a long, boring post if you ever want to read about this. So I will put it out with the whole thing. But the fact of the matter is, this was what I thought was going to be my only shot ever to run in an OCR Obstacle World Championship Pro Wave. So I took it rather than take the route of going age group and see what I could do and maybe get a top 10 or whatever, or something along that lines. I said, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to run with that. I'm going to get my ass kicked. I'm going to get kicked by the best. And I did. But I mean, I had a goal. I didn't want to be last. I wanted to keep my band, and I just wanted to, I don't want to say not embarrass myself because I don't think anything I could have done would have embarrassed myself because I had very realistic expectations going in. And so I ran the 3K because the 15K would have just been a gong show for me, but ran the 3K and I went through and I ran well for me. I kept my band and I ended up 44th. Not entirely sure how many people ran it. I don't know, but I wasn't last. I passed people on the course. I did well on my obstacles. I didn't take a lot of risks. I was very safe and secure on my obstacles because I did know that if I was going to beat anybody, I would have to, make sure I didn't make any mistakes. So I had a game plan. I did exactly my game plan and it did exactly what I wanted it to do. So I was really happy. I was really glad. And I still am. I'm really glad. I always look back at every race and go, I could have done a lot better. And I look back at this one the same, as I could have done a lot better because I did have a past couple months, I've had some knee issues, and that has really curtailed a lot of my endurance work and definitely hill climbing and descent. I did not get enough for that in because I'm sure I could shave off like probably 3 minutes on my climb and maybe a couple on my descent. And even if I took a few risks on the obstacles, I could shave some time there. I never had to retry anything. I never had to do anything like that. So, I mean, maybe I'd say I could bundle up and save a minute from there, but that is a lot of time looking up, especially on the climb and descent. So the good news is for me, that one, I hit all my goals. I did very happy and I get to go back again next year. So I'm already qualified for the Pro Wave for next year and I'm going to dive right in and I'm vowing that I'm going to be in better shape better at the obstacles so I can take more risks. I'm going to work a lot this year on, well, I'm not even sure of the climbing or the descent because we got to find out where it is yet because we don't
Mhm.
know. So we'll figure out what kind of style of course it's going to be. Most likely there's going to be a lot of climbing descent, but gonna work on that and agility, big time on the agility, because I think that will help in the descent and as well with me taking some more chances on the obstacles. So that's the plan. I'm very happy, and a lot of people. Two biggest compliments I got when I was there. One was from Austin Azar, who said he loved my shorts and he wants a pair. But I'm not going to tell him how to get them because I told him he will make them look too good and then I won't be able to wear them anymore. So I can't do that. So sorry, Austin. Find them yourself. And I think I'll be honest, this was right at the finish line, and I was a little winded. I did that sprint right at the end, pushing hard, and I was a little kind of I was almost emotional. I didn't cry or nothing like that, but I was really happy, and I think it was Jack Bauer who said to me, "Hey, congrats, you belonged." And I'm like, that was a great compliment. So if that was Jack indeed, it was either Jack or Matt or Mike Stefano. It was one of those three because those are the three I talked to at the finish line. One of those guys. Thank you very much. That meant the world to me, even though I can't remember who said it. But I think it
Great
was
for
Jack.
you.
I think it was Jack, and it would actually mean the most from Jack. So Jack, if it wasn't you, just tell me it was, and I'll be happy. Um, and yeah, so it was all in all, it was great for me. And then uh I was on the high for the rest of the thing for most of it. And the team relay too with my wife and her friend. We just had a great fun time out there.
Mhm.
I loved it. And you know, we'll do some thank yous later because a lot of people thank. Anyway,
Mhm.
the team relay though, it bumps us into one of the elephants
Yes.
and probably the biggest one. And before I said it, you know what I thought was going to be the big controversy when the weekend started?
Uh-huh.
Do you? I don't think you do.
Oh, well, I'm making an assumption based
Okay,
on after the weekend, but before the weekend, I don't know.
okay. This was not after the weekend. This happened in the first race, and I think we talked about it for 5 minutes, and then everything else happened, and we forgot all about it, and nobody's mentioned it.
In the 3K?
Yeah,
No, I forget.
on sketch, it looked like VJ whiffed on the bell,
Right.
and with everything else that happened, everybody's just dropped it and forgot about it. Did he whiff on it? Did he not whiff on it? It's really tough to tell, and it is a judge's call on the course, so it is what it is. But on the camera, it really
Yeah.
looked like he did. VJ
Yeah.
hesitated a bit, and even Megita and Nicole, who were doing commentary, thought he missed and said,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's a miss," and then it wasn't. And I was like, "Oh, I thought that was going to be a big blow up because he beat Kempson by like 14 seconds or something like that."
Yeah.
Which, if you take into a retry on the obstacle, are they battling closer head to head? That could really change the race. So
Mhm.
it's like, whoa, I thought that was going to be the big controversy.
Yeah. So
No.
one of the weird things with Sketch, and I don't, is when you're shuffling along, so the bell is on the bar. So
Yeah.
when I was on it, like I'm shuffling along and my hand naturally hit the bell, but it's like it's flying all over the place because it's on the bar that you're shuffling along. So when I was on it, I was actually thinking, okay, I understand why he might have accidentally missed it and it would have been just kind of
Mhm.
incidental because the bell is flying all over the place. So I think with this obstacle, you just really need to put the bell outside of the bar that you're sliding along as you're going.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. And he may have hit it, and it definitely would be one of those things where it'd be like, because it was flopping around everywhere, where he's like,
Yeah.
did I hit it? Did I not hit it? I'm not even
Yeah.
sure.
And I think that's what happened. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think he like missed it and tried
No,
to pretend that he didn't. I
no, I
think
don't
it
think
was
so
just
either.
the bell is flying all over the place because it was for me too. And yeah, so I think that's really what happened with this one.
I think you're probably right too. Like you say, just flying. And when I say he hesitated, and at first my first thought was, well, he wasn't hesitated if he didn't miss it. But then I've thought about it since then, and I'd be like, he might have just been in the mode where, like you say, was flinging around, and he wouldn't be sure. And I've had situations where I've hit the bell and not realized, like I
Yeah.
because it was such a subtle hit, or like you say, it was flinging around, or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. and I
Where you
wasn't
kind of
sure.
hitting with your knuckle, but your knuckle's holding the
That's
stitch
right.
thing, and
That's right.
you're kind of just, yeah,
Yeah, and I would hesitate and kind of look for the judge and wait for the judge to make their decision. So I
yeah,
think that explains the hesitation to me was he wasn't sure. So he's like, did I hit it? Did I not? He didn't call it bad. Okay, I bring it back and I go.
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
And by the way, full marks to VJ. Great race. He deserved it. Even no matter what the case you thought about right there, VJ just he smashed it. He had a great race. Kempson pushed him hard. And
yeah.
yeah, that was just a good, fun race to see. And
Mhm.
yeah, he's you know what? Last year some people gave him a little bit of grief. Not I shouldn't say grief, but maybe they're asterisk this, asterisk that. This person wasn't there, this person wasn't there, this person wasn't there. I thought that was bullshit. And now, okay, now he's had a chance again and he's proven it again that he is the best 3K OCR athlete. And anybody who says, well, why don't you do this or step up or do this or step up, bugger off because he is the champ. He's the world champ. If you think that's not great, send someone to beat him or beat him yourself.
Yeah.
So good for you, VJ. Back to the team relay elephants. So you want to go through this one? You want to lay it out?
So are we talking about pros racing and open?
Yes.
Okay. So the controversy here is, so the rules are that if you race pro in the 3K, you have to race pro in the 15. You
Mhm.
can't swap back and forth 3K and the 15 with what you race. So, but the team relays, it's left open. So what happened here was that we had some pros, some big name pros who podiumed. Chris Riglowski, the biggest one, raced open. So I think Chris was racing as many races as she could this weekend. So she jumped into a position where there was a place to be filled in an open race with some of her friends. So she raced open, mixed, and they ended up winning in that race, in the team race. There is a podium in that race, which makes it significant. So she does stand on a podium. As far as I know, there's not prize money, but it did yeah, so it did offend some open racers who said were that she should not have been in that race, racing pro and podiuming in pro races in the 15 and the 3. She had no place being in an open race and the team races.
So this raises a bunch of questions, and so it's not as simple as just one question. There's a few questions out of this, and it does hanker back to when Robert Killian ran age group at that stadium after he didn't podium in the elite. But it's a little bit different in a way. One, some people like Chris better, so that makes it different. Um, sorry, Robert. It's true. She's more popular than you. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. No, seriously, no. So some of the questions are this. One, should that, because she did not break any rules, first off. She
Right.
didn't break any rules. And so you can't say she did anything wrong and should have been disqualified or anything like that. Because she and much to Chris Rogowski's character, she broke no rules. She stays within the limits of what is acceptable. The question is, should that be acceptable? And it becomes one of those deals where I waver back and forth. I think in the current state it is, and the current way they do it, it's hard to argue that it shouldn't because they call it an open wave. And if you're
Mhm.
calling it an open wave, it
Yeah.
means it's open. Um, so that to me says the way it's currently set up, yeah, you got a letter. Is
Yeah.
it is it the kind of thing that comes off looking good? Well, probably not, you know, but still you can let her. So then the question after that becomes, do they change essentially the name of the open wave and make it illegal? And what do you think about that?
Yeah, so by calling it open, then I think, Chris has every right to race and nobody should have qualms about it. So we either decide, do we change the name of the race and we call it amateur? So I also think if you're gonna name it open, you probably shouldn't have podiums
Mhm.
because it's just there's just too much variance. You could still have a team of three pros that go together and race open because it's open and there's no rules against it. It's unlikely though that a group of three pros would ever do that because there's a pro wave where there's podiums and prize money. So, um, but yeah, so either they kind of have two options here. Either they need to change it, change the names, change the rules, make it amateur, or they leave it as it is and then they take out the podiums. So, and in that case, Chris could run and it's totally for fun. And I kind of think that should be the route that they take because, there's situations where someone who raced pro the day before, their buddies want them to kind of jump in for fun in this race. And this is what you did too, where your wife and her friend, they wanted you to jump in and they want to do this for fun. And you had a great time and it was for fun
Yep.
and there was no expectations. Um, and you had a good time with it. And but when there's a podium involved, that's where it creates the controversy. So Chris, having raced pro, I think maybe in this situation they should have declined standing on the podium and given it to other open waivers who didn't have a podium finisher in pro the day before standing on the podium because that's
Mhm.
kind of where it rubs people the wrong way who are open waivers. I don't know, but again, she didn't break any rules, so I don't blame her for standing on the podium. It's just kind of ethics of sport, I suppose, if you want to call it that.
So I just thought about this while you were talking. What if they did actually? So you have your pro wave, right? For the relay, which currently stands. Then you make an amateur wave, right? Which is a competitive wave that the pros cannot go in. Then you make a journeyman wave because we can all agree the relay is like the most fun.
Yes.
It's just great fun. It's a blast, especially if you're with your buddies having a good time. And yeah, by the way, I do admit I'm as guilty of this as Chris. I'm just not as good as her. So it didn't matter. Nobody cared, but I did the exact same thing.
Right. Right.
So, mhm. So then you have the journeyman wave. Anybody goes in, has a blast, no podiums, no nothing, just run, get your time, do your thing, have a good time. And that way the pros can go and run with their buddies who maybe aren't as fast and want to have a good time. And maybe that's the way to go is so you add a third wave. You have pro, an amateur for the age groupers, right? And then a journeyman wave with no
Yeah.
podiums whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because if the pros that drop down are saying, well, my story and my stance is I just want to run with some friends and have a good time,
Yeah.
then the podiums don't mean anything. So you can run in the journeyman wave and the journeyman won't care because they're just there to have a good time and there's no podiums to be had.
Right.
Right. So there you go. That part solved. And I've created another competitive division for people so they can have a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, I think those are the big questions from this. So I don't think Chris deserves to be crucified. I do believe that in that situation, especially considering that they knew that team was going to be highly competitive, that maybe, as you say, maybe she should have declined the podium. That's a judgment call, and that's up to her judgment. Um, it is what it is on that, and people will make their own decisions. But the biggest and most important thing is she broke no rules. She did nothing against any codes, and she had a hell
And
of
also people complaining that, oh, Chris was running open. This is also her fifth race of the weekend.
a Mhm.
Like, she's not really operating at Chris Rogowski 100%. Like, you know,
Yeah. Now, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here, though, because I just said really how I feel, but I'm going to play from the other side. And this is stuff that went through my head. And my wife was running at the same time as Chris. And when they took off, because the wave was so big, And the obstacles at the beginning were very small, right? A couple of walls and then gibbons, right? So limited lanes. When Chris got there, because she ran the speed leg, she was ahead of everybody, so there was no log jam for her. So it gave the rest of her team a huge advantage. So when we were down at um, Stairway, her teammate had such a massive lead by that time because other people got stuck in log jams, and plus, Chris runs incredibly fast as it is. That was almost unbeatable for any of the other teams who were only running in that division looking for a possible podium. So that is that huge advantage, because some people have said that, well, she only runs one leg. The other people have to run really fast too. But this is the kind of huge advantage someone like her can give an open team, is that it's not just a one leg. It's that first leg that gives her that separation. And
So is that her fault, or is it that they send off too many people in a heat that it backlogs initial obstacles?
well, I think it comes down to not so much her fault, definitely not her fault. What it comes down to is exactly your point earlier of, if you're going to send everybody at once, it's not fair to have podiums, because whoever's up front to start has a massive advantage over anyone who gets stuck in the back.
Yes.
So,
Which to me is one of the biggest problems of this whole weekend
mhm.
is the backlog at obstacles.
Yeah, and I mean, there you go. There's another one. So we'll jump right out of that and go to Lagaff, where on the, I guess it was the 3K through age group at some point. So for the pros, it was open. I can contest, because I can say, because I was there and went through it flawlessly. And but I guess during the age groups at some point, and I'm going to say it was during that really big wave that was like, it
The
seemed like
14, so it was like the 14-year-olds to 20-year-olds, and they mix it with the 40 to 50 and the 50 to 60.
it
And
was
they went all together.
massive. It was a massive wave.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pick apart some of the things with OCRWC, but in the midst of me doing that, recognize that I still believe it is the premier obstacle course racing event, and that for most part,
Yes.
Adrian and his crew do an amazing job. So don't
Yeah.
make me think that I'm saying it's no good. It's no good. I'm just saying these were things that happened. Um, so at some point during that massive wave, Lagaff got very backed up.
Mhm.
And so they decided at some point to make it optional. And I
Uh-huh.
have a couple of major problems with that. One, so the people who went through in the beginning, they had to do an obstacle that people coming don't have to do. And
Uh-huh.
being as we know, Lagaff is fairly technical and can trip people up, and that these particular ways were chip time, not gun time. So if you had the right moment and you got to skip that obstacle, that could give you a very big advantage of someone who did not have to skip. And then we have our buddy John Cross, who had his issue where he got on, slipped off, went to go do it again, and they're like, "Oh, you can just skip it." And he's like, "Why didn't you tell me when I first got here?" Right? Because he was pushing hard to race in his age group. So things like that, I don't like what they did with that. I think, and not having seen it, this is just me guessing. I think that there may have been some mismanagement of the way that obstacle was being run. Because if it's done, so it did have retry lane. So if you're getting there and you're retrying, you should only be using that lane, which means those other lanes should be open for the people just getting there. So that should have left 5 open lanes. And if you're worried about the retry lane being too long, well, that's your problem. You shouldn't have failed.
So Lagaff is the one obstacle though where you're failing it, but it's not like rigs where you're failing it, you fall off quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Lagaff, you could hang out on one of those poles for a very long time. So it's probably the most unique obstacle in that way because someone could be on that obstacle a long time.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that I remember back in 2017, CRWC at Blue Mountain. I remember there being a rule that you had to make forward progress. You couldn't stand in the one spot, like on an obstacle, for more than, I think it was like 5 seconds, or they would usher you along 5 to 10 seconds, or they'd usher you along or say, "That's it, you're off." That counts as a fail. I don't know if that rule is still in place, but definitely should be with Lagaf. And you're absolutely right that you could just hold on to one of those things for a long time, like 30, 40 seconds, and hang out while people are waiting. And that was true of the low rig I was on, because people were getting on the monkey bars and like dangling from their knees,
Right.
to rest. And it's a solid point, and that rule probably needed to be enforced and was not. I did not read the rules on Lagaf beforehand, so I don't know if that's still in play or not. I'll have to check that out. Lagaf rules.
The forward progress rule was on all obstacles.
There you go. If you didn't hear that, the forward progress rule was on all obstacles. Is it 5 seconds?
It didn't say an amount of
Okay.
time. It just said you had to continue moving forward at the judge's discretion. They might make you get off.
Okay, there you go. The art department says you need to continually move forward at the judge's discretion. And I think she's exactly right.
Of course.
Of course. Of course she is.
Of course.
Of course. So that rule's still being in place, hopefully, but I would wager you're right, and that wasn't enforced as it should be. And I
Yeah.
wager that the retry lane wasn't as enforced as it should be. And
Mhm.
I'm not going to slam the volunteer, because I'll tell you what, when that many people are coming at once and they were short staffed, that volunteer was probably on their own and trying to watch for people hitting bells, watch for people hitting the ground, and watch for people trying to sneak around the obstacles, because don't kid yourself, they do.
Yeah.
Cutting bands, because they're one person doing all this at a time. It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And then to try to enforce, how long's that person been hanging out too? Like,
Right. It's a lot.
it's too much for one person, so I don't blame them at all. They were just overloaded.
Yeah.
So again, and then do you blame OCRWC and the staff for not having more volunteers there? Well, how do you do that when you don't have more volunteers to put there?
She's told me she
Yeah.
had people sign up to volunteer that didn't show up.
Yeah, a lot of no-shows on the volunteer side, and that's disappointing.
So it might be a good time to say, if that frustrates you, volunteer.
Yeah, that sounds like something we'd say.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So if it frustrates you.
You don't have to do a whole shift. You don't have to do a half shift. You can say, I can help you for 1 hour.
Yeah.
Gladly take it.
Yep, absolutely. And it's like that I think is actually massive, because sometimes those volunteer shifts seem incredibly looming and difficult, and like 8 hours, I'm gonna be out here 8 hours, which quickly turns into 12, I promise you. It seems looming, but if you're like, I got 2 hours to spare, well, my buddy's up in the mountain and I could sit at an obstacle and help, or I can help someone, I can relieve people who need to go pee, which is a great use of your volunteer time.
That was my job.
That's right. You're in charge.
I ran around the mountain relieving people to have to pee. It's a very important job.
It is. You should have had like a specific title, like a special shirt. You could have been the pee girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone who had to pee or refill water bottles, that was my job. Mhm.
So yeah, so although Lagaf was an issue, I don't blame anyone, because it was just a situation. I don't even
Mhm.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't, they weren't prepared for what happened. And yeah.
Yeah.
I think saying it was, I don't blame them either for the decision that they made. You're trying to like problem solve on the fly. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. And I think it'll be better next time. Some people were saying take Lagaf out. Like don't put it up again, which I think would really be a crime and like a shame, because it is such a unique and fun obstacle. And it does present something that is not about pure grip strength. It's not about super agility. It is a mental technique obstacle, and I would hate to see them not put it up because of that. So hopefully they bring it back. And
Mhm.
there was another little controversy about that too. Was Rose Wetzel? Did you see that with Lagaf?
I know she struggled on it.
So when you got to Lagaf, what's the first thing you have to do?
Well, you have to pull it, the first one back.
Yeah, Rose didn't do that.
So what'd she do? Jump?
Yeah, so she jumped on the first one, but then the second one is really far away, because it's not meant to work in that direction. And then the third one was even worse. So she was completely spread out, and it was a bit of a mess for her, and she lost a lot of time there. Now, why she didn't pull the rope at the beginning, I don't know. I know that when I was running up to Lagaff, the volunteer, to that volunteer's credit, was as soon as you got there was pull the rope, pull the rope, pull the rope, was all over that. And that was before Rose had this issue. So, I know that was at least his mantra. So I would assume, and I saw the other girls do the same, that maybe, race brain, she's hurrying, she's moving, she didn't hear it, she didn't get it, she didn't understand what he meant. And so she definitely did that the hard way, but I don't really call it controversy because, that's kind of on her. But
Yeah.
But it was just another little thing on Lagaff, and that's the kind of thing Lagaff provides. It provides interesting obstacle situations.
It's quite unique from other obstacles. So,
and then there was one other big controversy, and we'll probably get into this a little more in the next episode. Fingers crossed if things work out. But Rylan Shadag finishing second and having his second place podium stripped away. What happened, Beth?
So Rylan decided to use chalk on his hand. So we originally all heard that it was liquid chalk. And then later he informed us that it was actually block chalk. Which either way, I was kind of confused. Liquid chalk is so obvious on people's hands.
It's like a paint job.
Yeah, it looks like you've painted your hands white. So my whole thinking was, how did nobody say anything through 15K? I saw once in a race where a girl was running with liquid chalk, and girls around her were yelling at her like, you can't have that on your hands, and they made her like wash her hands. So I was like, it made no sense to me, except to think like people let him do this and then said something after. So, but it turns out he had block chalk and he rubbed it on his hands before the race. Apparently his hands were really sore from the 3K, so he was worried about tearing them. Completely legitimate fear. He didn't read the rules, which says no chalk, nothing to enhance your grip, except for the use of gloves. Yeah, it was just an innocent mistake, and he was disqualified. I don't exactly know the process of how that happened. And he was great in just owning up to the fact that he didn't read the rules, and it was what it was. So he was disqualified. He finished second, and then the men behind him were bumped up.
So I did listen to Obstacle Racing Media today on the way home, on my drive home, with Matt and Rich Ryan. And from what they said, it seemed like he was actually putting the chalk on in the starting corral, which begs the question, what the hell were the rest of you doing? Why didn't somebody tell him?
He said that. He said people watched me do it.
Yeah, like, what are you guys not telling him for?
It
Like,
was fine.
Yeah, like, speak up. That's, I mean, Matt
so
made
did
this...
people watch him do it and then think, I'm gonna tell on him after?
Like, that's what I would do. But most people have more integrity than me. But I think, like, Matt made an interesting point. He said, sometimes you're almost like deer in the headlight, and you're like, and one, here's another thing too, and this is my point, and I've said it many times, you bloody elites don't read the rules. They might not have known either. So
maybe they were like, I've never thought to do that. Why have I never thought to do that? I wonder if that's legal.
Or they're thinking, and they may be thinking this, they might not have known the rule, but they might be thinking, well, that's just stupid. It's going to be gone on the first obstacle anyway. And as soon as it gets wet, it's worse. Makes it slimy. So it's worse.
Right.
So let him do his...
Start jumping over those walls, your hands, it's gone.
Yeah. So let him do his silly thing, and he'll learn. So,
and he was using like block chalk, like it was literally gone. There's 4 walls and then it's gone. It really did not help him win that race.
No, it wouldn't have been. It would have been gone by pendulum.
100%.
Yeah. So, or sorry, that would have been on the 3K.
There was the Tyrolean traverse, like him sliding his hands along that rope. It's gone.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing. First off, and like I said, hopefully we know, but nobody in the world thinks Rylan intended to cheat. Nobody. All right. Anybody who does is a moron. One,
Yeah.
because this guy's a character guy, and two, that would have just been the dumbest way to cheat in the world, and nobody's going to do it intentionally. So yeah, it's like, why did nobody point it out to him? And then they threw the whole race. So what happened, my understanding is when he crossed the finish line, he was DQ'd almost immediately. So either through the race sometime, someone had reported to Adrian or he had noticed or something, but some right at the finish line, right at the end of the race, they were told right away. So somebody had to have pointed it out, which again raises the question, when did this person find out about it? And if it was at the beginning, why didn't they tell him? But even if it was through the race, so let's just say it was halfway through the race that this was noticed, should he have been pulled off? Right? So I don't know. So questions that gets risen is, should he have been DQ'd? Is this a fair rule? Is this a fair punishment for the crime?
Well, I think the rule is fine. I don't think you should, because otherwise now people are just going to be carrying chalk in their pack. It's a great rule. I wish someone would have said something before, because as far as I'm concerned, he earned second place. I don't know. Yes, the punishment fits the crime. It's in the rule book. You should have read the rule book. It kind of seems simple to me in that way. So I don't, I think the call was perfectly fine. It sucks because I don't think, had Ryland not put chalk on his hands in the starting corral, would he not have come second? No, I think he was second regardless. So in that way, it just sucks for him.
Okay, the art department has handed me a note. Well, actually, phone. All right, where is it? Top one, right?
At the top.
Beyond shoes and gloves or protective gear, e.g., shouldn't that be IG or is that IG?
I thought it was.
Anyway, elbow pads, compression sleeves, buffs, or knee pads, clothing / personal equipment may not be used to assist in the completion of obstacles, and all equipment must be used for its intended manufacturer's intention. Intended manufacturer's intention. Oh,
There's a lot of typos.
Anyway, hand or feet grip aids such as pine tar, liquid chalk, metal studded shoes, metal spiked footwear, or equivalent are strictly prohibited. So it actually just says liquid chalk. However, it does say or equivalent. So, so we're gonna go with that regular chalk. If people are reading that rule and saying that was a loophole there, well, equivalent, I would think block chalk counts as an equivalent.
Sure.
So it is there, and I agree with you. I don't like that he was DQ'd. I feel gutted for him, but it is the right call because it's listed in the rules, and you follow the rules. Even like as a race director, you have to follow the rules, even when you know it sucks.
Yeah,
but you have to do it.
But still, somebody say something before the poor kid goes all the way up the mountain.
There you go. Somebody say something. We should have all we all let Ryland down.
Yeah.
Either way, he had a great run, and he's a hell of a guy. So good for him. Other than that, any other takes from the week? The 100-meter. What did you think of the 100-meter?
Super exciting. I loved, so the 100-meter had a whole group of people from American Enjoyer, the show up, and wow, what a spectacle in the finals for how fast people can do obstacles. This year was much better than last year. Last year we kind of called the long jump competition. This year they actually had to do the obstacles. The finals were done in pouring rain, and it was amazing to see these people go through this course as if it wasn't soaking wet, which to me is just a thing to see. But it's too bad it was raining, because I think the amount of people that would have been there would have made it that much more exciting if it wasn't pouring rain. But wow, it was super exciting to watch. I hope they do it again, do it bigger, do it longer. It's one of the most, it's kind of like I kind of, as a like middle distance runner along, I kind of rat on a little bit on the 100 meter. Everybody loves to watch the 100 meters on the track, but man, it's super exciting to watch. And I love in the finals too how it's head to head. It's nothing to do with time, but you're going head to head with people and it's elimination based on that. It's just a really exciting way to race. So yeah, I hope they do it again. Do it longer, like exciting obstacles. Hopefully it's not raining, but yeah, it's a great event.
So I made the decision. I was supposed to run the 100 meter, and for various
You're
reasons
frozen.
during the weekend, I did not do it. And I have now gotten to the point where I am regretting that decision, just a little bit. But it is what it is. I made my decision, and I don't stand by it. But some of the things I'm going to say the good and the bad about the 100 meter. Absolutely right. Super exciting. I was looking forward to that going in. I was looking forward to watching it, and I mean, it delivered on what was promised. I do have some of issues with the course design. I didn't like when they had the great big walls in it because it just slowed things down too much during the time trials. The cargo net at the end proved to be dangerous and was removed for the finals. And I hope that that becomes a lesson learned. And now, to me, probably the biggest one though was the anchors away obstacle at the end. Great obstacle, fantastic. Leave it in there. But when we have anchors away or skitch or whatever, we have housekeeping in OCR. I get it. And we're still promoting this as a 100-meter OCR course, not a ninja course. I get it. But the real thing we want out of this is speed and excitement. And watching people have to try to get the rings off the hooks for no apparent reason and put them over somewhere else is just silly. And they should have been allowed to just hit the bell and barrel up that warp wall and be done.
Yeah.
It took away from me, and we saw races decided by ring housekeeping, and I don't want that.
Yeah, someone would accidentally hit a ring to get it off the hook, especially, and I don't want to go too far into like the qualms about being a short girl, but when someone can't reach the ring and then they can so they're jumping and jumping to hit it off, and that's your race right there, just because you couldn't get the ring off.
Yeah. And especially when you have a volunteer who's there to reset it anyway. So they're pulling the rings off, putting them on this, pole, and then running up the warp wall. And then the volunteer comes, takes them off the pole and brings them back to the beginning. Let's just have the volunteer take them off the anchors. I mean, you have the person there to do it.
Nothing to do with their skills as a or OCR competitor or a ninja competitor. It just, did they get it off the hooks fast enough?
Yeah. And so that was a bit of a disappointment for me. The other thing that I found really annoying, and I mean, we talked about when we were watching it, was lack of an MC at the event. And we had no idea, for the most part, if you weren't familiar with the athletes, you didn't know who was running. You didn't know what round it was. You didn't know a lot of things. And that really, one, I think, was frustrating. And two, it took away from the excitement. And this, and then it's going to sound egotistical. This bothered me because this is something I would have been very good for.
It's true.
Yes.
Well, I was volunteering Saturday. The MC over at the finish line kept turning around and saying something. Oh, look, so and so is going over the wall now. And remember when the T-Rex did our course?
Yeah.
I mean, he was paying attention and saying something every now and then.
Yeah, and in that scenario, that's great.
You didn't get that in the final.
That's great, and that's good for the qualifying. You don't need a full-time MC for the qualifying rounds, but for the semifinal and the final, and he doesn't have to do commentary as the race goes on. Just introduce the athletes, get a little hype going, and and explain. Quarterfinals. Benny Gifford head to head with Joe Moravsky, and away they go. And have the little countdown. 3, 2, 1, go. Right, a little fair warning, a little hype would have went a long way.
They got somebody at least looking over and saying something every now and then during days leading up to it, but nothing for the finals.
Yeah, it was definitely an oversight and a misstep. And next year, well, come get me. I'll do it.
Yeah.
You know, I volunteer for everything else. I will volunteer for that
Hmm.
because I'm not going to be in the final. So you can come get me.
Yeah, just and again, it's a race where the excitement and the production of it just could create so much hype. And even I was always curious because I was always timing too, how fast people did that. Because to me, that's really interesting. You know, we're getting guys doing this course in 45 seconds by the end. So even to just have the announcer saying they did this in whatever time, or having, if it's possible, to even have your a timing screen just saying like that's the time that they did it in. Like it adds to the production value of that event because it's such an exciting event to watch.
That would actually be very cool. I would like a
Mhm.
nice clock up there to do. And then you could roll in a watch sponsor, you know, Timex or something. You know, it sounds funny, but it's true. Any
Yeah.
kind of timing, you can
Well,
bring in a
you know,
timing.
like I have friends who own timing companies, and to have them bring in their timing system
Yeah.
would just, again, it could add to, you know, then people are there who run their own races. So then that, you know, it all could just add to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I think it's all good ideas. And I do have I'm going to make one other comment about the whole course, and I do think and I can't not say something about it. Some of the obstacles needed more safety padding, um, and a little more concern with safety. Maybe some pool noodles on the sides of some of the uprights, and more straw just extended out. I thought there was a lot of chances where some people could have got hurt, and some people did get hurt. And the more we can prevent that, the better. And I think in this situation, some of the situations, it was a very doable thing to prevent some of these injuries. And I hope that they learn from it and going forward are able to improve things.
Mhm.
That's all I'm going to do with that.
So then the only other thing I would say as well, if is there was not water on the course.
Yes. And that again comes down to a lack of volunteers.
Yeah, so I was in pro women, and when I got down into the festival area after 2.5 hours of racing, I had one tiny cup of water at the top of the mountain. And thank goodness it was like 5 degrees and freezing. So I never felt like was I didn't feel like I was dying, but at a certain point, like I did start to cramp up, and
Mhm.
you know, I kind of wished I had some water. And there was and typically I don't have a problem wearing a hydration vest, but when I looked at the map, I'm like, this is great. There's no reason I should need to carry water. You know, 6 or 7 water stations along the way within 15K. I'll be totally fine, and everything was set up for these water stations, but you'd go by and there was nothing set up for the water. So you know, in some ways they're lucky that the weather was what it was, but if it
Mhm.
was 20 degrees and sunny, you would have some problems there too. So like those are things you just can't, like, you can't mess up that stuff. Like if you're gonna um like, and again, maybe this just comes down to like, again, please volunteer. Those things make or break a race for people, and we need people at water stations, at obstacles, for people's health and safety, and that's a big deal when it comes to people's races. So to me, that was kind of a big mess with this race too.
Yeah. And again, it came down to just not having the staff and the volunteers to man the stations and having to essentially make the hard choices. Do we take out an obstacle and man the water station? Or do we leave the obstacle in and tell the athletes, hey, bring your own water because we're unable to man the stations? So it's a tough choice. And you're right. Hopefully that's not one they have to make again. And because, yeah, we don't want to see obstacles go missing for water stations. That sucks ass. But
And think
but from
about
a safety perspective, yeah.
she said she was 2.5 hours on the mountain. She came down and all she'd had was one cup of water. She's a pro athlete who runs pretty fast. What about journeyman?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I came down off that mountain. I hadn't failed an obstacle. I hadn't done a retry. I'm not super slow. I was 2.5 hours at 14.5K with one. So it's not like I was taking forever at
Yeah.
anything. So like people that were not and were having retries, like I can't even imagine what that would have been like. And hopefully after the pros, maybe they opened up some water stations, but like I had one tiny cup of water.
Well,
And there wasn't even actually a volunteer there. It was just there.
yeah. And
And we like were pulling cups out, like opening the boxes.
Oh, wow.
I was up there for 8 hours and I wouldn't have any water if it wasn't for Jeff. Thanks, Jeff. And Riley, she helped out with the water too.
Yeah, I was running over streams thinking if I just licked this stream, would anybody judge me?
So we don't need water stations. We need straw stations. So people could just bend down and take a little sip out of the stream.
I would have done it.
Not plastic straws, though, reusable ones or paper
Right.
ones.
Compostable.
Compostable straws in plastic wrappers. So yeah, I think all right, I think that about wraps up OCRWC. We had a blast. It was a great time.
I need to end on a good note.
We have some other things we got to talk about quick. Some other things we got to talk about quick because we're not going to have time to go really into it. I do want to say, so coming up this weekend, we have High Rocks New York, first North American High Rocks race of the season. Really exciting. This is the one, and I think maybe we'll do a good recap show to go over it more and maybe have a guest from there. But this is the one that they're doing with part of the course outside. And again, I think this is fraught with potential hazards. It could be very cool.
Mhm.
Really, if the weather turns, this could go ugly. I hope they have some backup plans in order.
Yeah.
Because this could go sideways quick.
Yeah.
So we'll see with that. That said, we do want to wish Austin Azar good luck, who is going down there and going to give it a shot, and hopefully he can put in a really high quality time because I have long thought that Austin is made for this event.
Yeah. And it will be one of our first big Canadian names to actually give High Rocks a good go.
Yeah, like I think pretty much the biggest names we've had is like Amanda Nadeau.
Yeah.
And if you count face standing.
Right. True. Yes.
Faye's really kind of just a New York girl now, so she may not even be Canadian anymore. She may have renounced it. I don't know. But yeah. So I mean, other than that, like I once wanted to put together a top 10 Canadian list of times at High Rocks, and I don't think I could find enough of them.
Yeah.
So I didn't bother. So
yeah.
Maybe next year that'll be different and I can do that finally.
Yeah.
So High Rocks New York this week. Hopefully there'll be some kind of stream, some information. I'm sure there'll be social media of some kind. And best of luck, Austin. Kick some ass out there. And then of course this weekend we have the Canada's first ever Deca Strong Farm Girl Fitness. Really excited. I don't know what else to say other than I will probably put some social media up, although it'll be difficult because I am gonna be doing my run and then doing a lot of judging. So everybody who's not me will be getting a lot of no reps. And going from there. If you think you're going to beat me, you don't have a chance because I'm going to cheat. So anyway, looking forward to that. And it's just been really busy. So next week, I don't know, man. We have so much stuff for next week. Who knows? We might have to do 2 episodes. We'll see. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's a good time of year right now. Championship season, good races.
I have so many things other than like we have. I mean, like there's stuff like people going to DECA World Championships trying to do like the DECA, whatever trifecta where they're trying to win podium in all 3 events and
plus a team, so you could do the quadfecta.
Quadfecta, that'd be very interesting. Yeah. I don't know. Would be quadrifecta. Would quad? Yeah, quad. Yeah. Quintuple fecta. That's what I got confused with. Screwed up my fancy word number names. But yeah, there's that going on. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. So super exciting. There's stuff coming up in the future. We got to talk about Spartan Worlds, Blue Mountain. There's just so much going to happen soon. So, but we'll save it for another day. Let's just wrap it up, Beth.
Yeah, good chat. So, congrats to everybody that raced at OCRWC, such an amazing event, and to the organizers, still one of the best races of the season. If you have not been to it, please get out to it next year. And yes, we will be around next week chatting about all the exciting things happening in hybrid racing and OCR.
And one more thing, by the way, if you want to check out some of the live stream actions, they are on YouTube. Both Obstacle Racing Media and OCR Report did live streams of it. So you go on YouTube, check out their live streams, and give them a thumbs up. Take care.